Hello Internet, we are doing a walkthrough of Omnom, the new track from Blue Alatar. This is going to be similar to the walkthrough we did for the trials a few weeks back. I think we probably start by playing the song. Yeah? A quick note, this is up on all of the streaming platforms now. I'm not going to promote any one of them because they're basically all evil. But whatever you listen to music on, if you want to listen to Omnom by Blue Alatar, that would be really great. If you want to add it to a playlist on whatever platform you use, that would be brilliant. If you want to actually support me as a musician, you can go to Ko-fi. Ko-fi is the only platform I'm going to really plug here because the thing about Ko-fi is if you buy my music from Ko-fi, I see pretty much most of the money you send my way, right? As opposed to any other platform where I'm lucky if I see a couple percent, whereas Ko-fi, it's the complete inverse. So if you want to get the MP3, the high quality MP3 of Omnom, Ko-fi, if you don't mind. Thank you very much. Let's play the song. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to go through instrument by instrument and just see what's going on. So a quick note, the version that you would just have heard is the full finished master version. The mix is a little bit different in this version. I mean, we can talk about that, I suppose. So when I'm working in the box, in this in the project where I'm writing the song, I have some like kind of master level tweaks going on. So a bit of EQ, a little bit of saturation, some maximizing and some stereo imaging, and you can see we're peaking a little bit, but that's fine. That is actually not a problem because these all get turned off. So what happens is I do that just so I can hear the track. I can hear things at kind of like a level that represents what it will be when it's finished. I know other people don't work like that. This is just how I do it. So if this sounds wrong to you, don't worry about it. This is just what I do. When I'm writing the track, when I'm putting things together, and when I'm producing it and mixing it, it will feel a little more like that finished version, basically. When I master this and get it ready for release, I turn these off. I also turn off the room send, which we might talk about. I don't know if we necessarily need to. Turn off the room send. I bounce out the audio files and pull them into the master project file. And even though all the tracks this year are being released at different points, I still want them to have a degree of consistency, especially in amplitude, and especially because we're using a lot of the same plugins, like it's the same drum kit for all the stuff this year and a lot of the same amplifiers through all the releases this year. Yeah, I wanted to make sure that the mix and the master level was consistent as well, so I can make sure that Omnom is pretty comparable to the trials, and that's pretty comparable to the stuff that's coming next. And there is more this year from Blue Alatar. So that's the mix master stuff, which may or may not be interesting to you, but I suppose I could say that about this whole video. You will notice that we are at bar 300 and something, and it's just 300 bars of nothing. Prior to that, except for some tempo changes. This project file had a bunch of other songs in it, at least 1, 2, 3, 4 other songs by the look of it. I think Worship, which came out a couple of years ago, I think that was in here. I think that was this little one. I basically wrote a bunch of songs in one project file because they were going to be in the same album or EP, I guess. And then over time realized actually it's better if I release these as singles because of the way the world is. So this is just a holdover from that. And I don't want to go deleting tempo and moving stuff over and putting the project over here, because to be honest, there's so much automation going on. I'm terrified of losing it. So we're just working from bar 300 and whatever. Don't worry about it. It's fine. I promise it's fine. Drums. So the drums are me. It's not me playing, it's me programming drums. We're using a studio drummer, I believe, from Native Instruments. Yes, we are in the hard rock preset. Typically, I tend to stick to these presets. Sometimes I'll tune the snare and the kick drum. It looks like I detuned the kick drum ever so slightly. And I tend to reduce the room mix of the hi-hat quite a bit. And also the mix of the direct microphone mix of the hi-hat. I tend to reduce that quite a lot as well. I just find, especially the open hi-hat, I find the hi-hat to be really annoying. And that's not in Studio Drummer, that is across the board. I like the hi-hat from like a composition standpoint. I just find it sonically very irritating. So it's always low in the mix. That is, you can tell I have mixed something because the hi-hat will almost not be there. The drums were written by me. I was hoping to get my good friend Harry Beasley on this. Harry did the drums for the trials, and I think actually I've nearly released everything that he worked on, except for one thing that I haven't quite decided what I'm doing with. The plan was to get Harry to work on this, but he had to flee the country, so we just didn't have time to get him to record Omnom. I guess because I I wanted to give Harry the freedom to do whatever he wanted, so I didn't solidify like a version of the drums that I really liked until very recently, until earlier this year, 2025, I think. That kind of double snare, the bat-bada, that was in every bar for a long time. Bat-bada, bat-bada, bat-bada. I realised after a while that it was actually quite annoying. So I deleted every other one, and actually now it sounds a lot better. We've got kind of like a nearly dance kind of drum beat, I think, with the open hi-hat. I don't even know if that's particularly playable by a drummer, but that's what we've got for this yellow section. This kind of teal section is a little more laid back. Yeah, I mean, not a lot to say about it because I wrote the drums, so I'm not particularly attached to them. I think I write okay drum parts. I think they're fine. So in terms of mix and stuff, we are using the Monster Drums EQ preset, which I'm a big fan of. That just nerfs the kind of sub-low, boosts the snare a tiny bit, and then does some kind of mid stuff. We got a little reduction here around 1K, another smaller reduction around 5K, and then we've got these kind of 10 and 20K boosts. In retrospect, I think actually these may have been a mistake. I remember quite clearly going to the master level and thinking, ooh, actually those are a bit too shiny. They're a little too sparkly at the top. So I think actually if I just didn't have those, that would have solved me a problem in the other project file. Oh well. We've also got some compression going on here. We're using the Funk Drums preset again. We are peaking. I think I took care of that before I actually exported. Maybe I didn't. Who knows? Who knows? Here's the thing about peaking, right? If it doesn't sound like it's peaking, it's not even really peaking. If it sounds distorted, then you've made a mistake. If it doesn't sound distorted, don't worry about it, you know? That's all I really want to say about the drums. I think the compression is automated, as you can see here. We have the little count in where the mix for the compressor is really low, and it sort of just sustains at about nearly 60%. We have this sort of mid section, which is on about 11%. In this blue section, it's a bit more spacey, it's a bit more ambient, so I wanted to, you know, have the hi-hat in there, because if you were playing in a band, you would have the hi-hat or something keeping you in time. I figured it was worth doing that, but I didn't want to draw attention to it, so that's why the mix is down there for the compressor. Just while we're on drums, I mentioned Harry Beasley earlier. The key difference between this track and the Trials from a few weeks ago, in the Trials track breakdown, I said that these tracks are kind of a return to like the psychedelic rock instrumental prog roots of Blue Alatar, the stuff that I kind of got started doing, like the Ozric Tentacles inspired stuff that I really love doing. I took a break from that last year to do more kind of straightforward folk rock, which I really love as well. And I'm gonna go back and forth between these two different styles because remember, crucially, genre is a social construct. This track is a continuation of the psychedelic rock instrumental prog thing. The Trials, I brought in a load of session players. This one is all me. Omnom is all me. I was going to have Harry on the drums. We didn't have time. He had to flee the country, like I said. I was going to get my friend Pitts to do didgeridoo. Pitts did didgeridoo for Kicking and Screaming last year. He did record some didge for Omnom. It just didn't fit because it's quite a dense song. I realised that if I was going to include the didge in Omnom, it would have to be so low in the mix to not make the whole thing just sound chaotic, that actually it may as well not be there in that case. So rather than, you know, having paid someone to create some audio for me, I don't want to then bury it. That seems pointless. So actually, I'm keeping hold of that, and I'm going to create something new built around that. So if you happen to hear a new piece of music from me in the near future featuring didgeridoo at 126 BPM, you'll know what's happened. Let's look at the bass. We are using a massive, everybody's favorite VST plugin. Did I build this from scratch? Maybe. Can't really remember. Let's say yes. I went on a bit of a journey with the bass. I started, I think I created this song around like this really sort of vocal, kind of chewy bass sound that I really liked. I didn't save the preset. And then several years went by from creating the initial version of Omnom. This is an old track, by the way. I think I maybe started this in 2014. That's the way with a lot of the music I write. I write something I kind of like. I don't think about it for close to 10 years. And then I listen back to it and go, oh, that's pretty sick. Let's tighten up and release it. That's basically what happened here. Omnom's a little different. I kept going back to it every couple of years. I'm thinking, yeah, okay, this could actually be something. So I'm glad we're actually about to release it. So in 2014, I had this really sort of mouthy kind of vocally bass synth that I liked. That was various versions of Cubase ago, so the preset got lost. And since then, I've kind of been chasing the dragon a bit, trying to recreate this bass synth that exists only in my memory. And that was one of the things that kind of put me off releasing this, is that I never quite got it. But then I kind of realized that that's a thing that's going on in my head, and people that are listening to this piece of music don't know that there is a better idealized version of this bass that exists in a parallel dimension. Like, people don't know that. That's just in my head. You can see in the mute folder here, I've gone through a few different versions of the bass. This one I'm quite happy with. So we're using massive, and we're swapping between a couple different modes, I guess. So the basic sound is this. And the other version is this. So two kind of distinct sounds that still kind of feel like they're the same instrument. Let's look at the instrument level stuff first. We have two macros that are going on here. The first macro is what's it doing? We are amplifying oscillator number 1, and we are moving the wavetable of oscillator number 2. We are very, very slightly adjusting the bandwidth of the first cutoff. We're doing something else with the second filter cutoff here. I think that's everything for macro number 1. That's this first line here that goes up into this section. What is macro? Macro number 2, I think, is just giving us a bit of a longer release, which is quite important for some of the sections we'll get to. And macro number 3 is the other main one. We're becoming more distorted. We are increasing the cutoff of filter number 2. It is mostly about the distortion for that one, I think. Macro 1 is doing a lot of the work here. It's really macro 1 that's swapping between these two different modes. I do think it's interesting that actually, this is probably something I just completely ignored. This section here is a lot more subby than the rest of the time. Why is that? I suppose that's the only time that we have distorted guitar. Okay, that's it. We're not entirely in one mode or the other. We're kind of mostly in this mode here, and then we turn that macro up for this section. The only time we turn that macro completely off is when we have distorted electric guitar, because I guess the electric guitar brings in a lot of body, a lot of warmth, so actually it's worth bringing the bass back in the mix a little bit. We also, we play with the release a tiny bit. In a couple sections, I think. Oh yeah, anytime we want like a sustained sound. Yeah, lovely. We bring the distortion in for that one little section. I think we'll talk about that bit when we get to the guitars in a bit more detail, but you'll notice that actually the drums, we cut them off completely for that bit. We have the bass, we have the guitars playing, and we have everything else just is a cut. Not even that, nothing's playing, because I didn't want the release of any instruments. I wanted just like a vacuum immediately. So that's what's going on at bar 406. Yeah, so in terms of EQ and stuff and inserts, there isn't any automation going on, but we have some round and clicky preset, which is one of my favorite bass presets. I use that for bass guitar quite a lot, and obviously this is a bass synth, not a bass guitar, so I think I've reduced the gain on a lot of these EQ points. I guess just so it references that bass tone that I like, but we're not playing guitar, so it's sort of pointless. We're using the basic bass preset, and we also have a stereo imager as well. This is just making sure that everything below 100 and 130 hertz is mono, and everything above that is stereo. That's all we're doing there, just to create that sort of central bass sound that we want. Yeah, that's all I really want to say about the bass. It's just kind of doing these cool subby sort of filtery patterny things, kind of rhythmic stuff in the background, and the rhythm in these sections comes from there's like a chopper effect, I guess. Yeah, we got one of these performance LFOs. It's kind of subtle in some places, kind of not in other places, and then in other parts of the song the rhythm is coming from what is being played. That's the bass. Let's open up the effects folder. Oh boy. So there's a few things going on. We have this kind of effects pad which has got some chopper going on. There's a bit of automation going on here. Here is what is being played. Robotalk, which is a nice preset. I'm sure I would have tweaked the preset in some way, but I'm not sure what. I start with presets quite often, and then I want to make sure that I'm tweaking them in some way so that they're, mine. So this is the initial sound. So we're kind of swapping between the two layers a little bit. That's one of the things I like about PadShop, is this kind of dual layer mode. So we're playing with that, and we're also kind of we're treating it a bit like a riser. So we're kind of automating the volume up and then taking it away. We've got some chopper going on. That's just doing like an eighth note thing. Gives it a bit of stereo life as well, I guess. And then later in the track, we don't hear it for a long time. We treat it in this section as just like a sparkly high-end element. I remember I struggled for a while to get the level for that right, because it did dominate in a really unpleasant way for a while. So I'm glad that sounds. I think it sounds good now. In this ambient section, we're doing a bit more with the going back and forth between layers. We're quite low in the mix, but there isn't a lot going on, so that doesn't matter so much. We have some multi-tap delay going on, a plugin which I like, but does occasionally break my computer. And we're playing with the chopper level mix and also the chopper speed. I think also we have a pitch increase. We have like a glissando thing. It's quite subtle if we do. Yeah, we have a bit of a pitch bend there. So kind of to match something cool that's going on with the lead guitar, which we'll get to. Just little subtle things, like I like the increase in the chopper speed there. Yeah, it's cool. And then again, we just use it as high-end sparkle towards the end, like in the previous section. We have a couple ambient things going on. Laws is an instrument I'm really, really fond of. I use it a bunch, actually, to just add some kind of life. Laws is kind of a collection of folky instruments and sort of weird kind of folky instruments you don't always hear, like a hurdy-gurdy. And it has some more normal things like flutes and clarinets. I use it if I just want to add a bit of life, because actually the way it plays loops doesn't always synchronize. It just adds a bit of, I guess, kind of randomized texture. I've not really gone to grips properly with how to use it. I do get lost in there quite often, but I really like it. So we've got Laws and we have Mysteria. This song has got quite a lot of like vocal textures in the bass, in some of the effects. And I kind of wanted to make a nod to that. So we've got this kind of whispery soundscape thing. So those two together sound like this. Yeah, quite spooky. So Mistra has the chopper and a bit of filtering going on, so we're kind of using it a bit like a riser in this section. And I think because it's clean guitar and no bass, actually we have the space to play with ambient sounds a bit without them, getting in the way. I think you might not notice them if you're just listening to the track. I think you sort of get distracted from this sound, which I think is fair enough. Again, this is Pad Shop doing some weird stuff. This is the Alien Words preset, which I really, really like. It's some odd vocoder nonsense. Again, I probably would have started with this preset and tweaked it in some way. This is an odd project. I don't remember what they did. I don't think there's any automation other than volume, because sometimes it does dominate a little bit, and sometimes I want it to kind of like fade in or like disappear quickly. We also have a bit of modulation going on. I think I may have, judging by this, I probably will have played this in, I guess. This is very strange stuff. This is some Osric Tentacle stuff, Yeah, I think I'm playing with the mod wheel and the pitch wheel there. I like that a lot. Like that plus the whispery ambience plus the kind of vocal bass texture. I think you get why I called this track Omnom. Right, that takes us to the synths folder. Synths. Let's start with the it's called arpeggio, but I think it's only an arpeggio sometimes. That's not an arpeggio, but it does have a kind of I think it's the stereo delay that makes it sound that way. Yeah. Quite a sort of percussive kind of delay there that I quite like. Yeah. So that's the synth. I think we are using Reactor. I don't use a lot of Reactor. We started with the Abrupt preset in Super 8, and I don't know what I would have changed about it. We are swapping between arpeggio and not arpeggio. This is kind of the main pattern. And we can see we're using the mod wheel here to, I think, open up the filter a little bit. And we're kind of just like doing that gradually. What else are we doing? We're automating the volume a little bit just to make sure it fits with the rest of the track. I want it to be central sometimes and not central other times. It's interesting, I guess. I turned the arpeggio on at bar 370, whatever, and then just never turned it off, even though I'm playing this. But I've played the notes so short that the arpeggio doesn't kick in. But it does for that bit, which I guess was my plan. And again, I've played really short chords here. It's interesting that I've done that, isn't it? Because this is clearly supposed to be a chord, and yet we're only hearing one note. I don't know. I guess I wasn't thinking at the time. That's clearly supposed to be like in this track, isn't it? Yeah, because it's clearly supposed to be a chord. Whatever. I'm not worried about it, so you don't have to be worried about it. But it is funny that I think that is just a mistake. We're doing a little bit of panning here towards the end as well. Like, again, that's a real sort of straightforward psychedelic rock thing, having a filtery arpeggio that goes back and forth, left and right. You know, it's not the most original idea, but it is also something that I don't hear much these days. An arpeggio with several mistakes. We have these two pluck tracks. They kind of act as a group. So we have two layers. We have a pad shop and a retrolog. They're both panned off to the right, kinda. The first layer here is retrolog. We started with this thing called plucking wood, which isn't apropos because that's what it sounds like. And this is kind of playing, I think, chords and unisons. What are you doing? B, B, B. Yeah, so that's just doing 3 octaves of the same thing. And then again, octaves of the same thing, I think, throughout. And sometimes individual notes. And the dub, I think he's just playing lower notes. Yeah, in the 3rd octave there. I think that second track is quite shiny, but it doesn't have a lot of body to it. And that by itself doesn't have a lot of shine. And this is, I guess, taking the role of a lead instrument. So actually layering it totally makes sense. Ooh, that's a bit gross, but whatever. So the first track here, Retrolog, we've got some EQ going on. We're mostly just taking care of the low end there. I've used a house bass preset as a starting point, which is funny. We're kind of increasing the sort of what would usually be the snare range, I think, to get that kind of transient sound. I guess, you know what, I reckon I forgot this was on here, to be honest. to be real with you. We're adding a bit of saturation and we're adding a bit of compression as well, just to keep the level consistent. And likewise, again, the house bass preset. What a weird move by me with some compression as well. Is that... Okay, so I think I maybe wanted to boost that because that at least has some information in that range, right? I guess I wanted to just copy that preset onto the other one, but there was kind of almost no point in doing that. We have some garbage left over from other eras. So what is going on here? Volume automation, absolutely fair enough. DCA attack. Okay, I guess I just wanted to make it slightly less transient, slightly slower transient. All right, whatever, me in the past. I think it's important to say that, like, a lot of this took place in the distant past. Like I say, I'm pretty sure I've been working on this track on and off for like 10 years. So you will just do stuff that was maybe part of your workflow back then, and then in a few years go, that bears no resemblance to the music I'm making now. But you leave it in, because you don't look at stuff. If stuff doesn't sound weird, you don't look at it. So that's why there's some odd stuff there. Speaking of odd decisions, let's look at the guitars. So we have a few layers going on because of course we do. Let's start with the clean guitar. So we're using Guitar Rig, and I think I would have been using the Cort M600T, I think, for this. Probably with the coil tap activated to get a kind of stratty sound. We are using the Fire Breather amp, which is a weird call for a clean guitar, but I think it's just because we're using the Fire Breather elsewhere, so I want to have a sort of consistent sound. I guess the idea is that if a guitarist is playing this part live, they would be able to swap between the distorted part and the clean part. Not that I ever intend to play these live, but hey, you never know. And we have some delays that I think are activated separately. The standard clean sound is this kind of funky one. It's actually a little bit kind of gainy and fiery for what I would normally do as a clean sound, but it's quite nice. That's sound number one, and then sound number two is this. Which is quite different, and I'm quite pleased that I managed to get that on the same track. So a bunch of stuff happens here. We turn off the compressor inside of Guitar Rig. That gets turned off. What else do we do? We unmute the twin delay, this one, and I bet we turn up the gain on the amplifier, apparently. We turn up the volume a little bit. We increase the send, of course, to a channel which we'll get to. This is kind of all out of order. If I just put this down here. We unmute the psychedelic delay, which is doing, I think it's reversed and up an octave, which is why it's kind of shiny and nice at the top end. So we increase the gain on the amp, but turn down the master volume. Okay. I may have done neither of those things in a separate life. We also have a ping pong delay mix, which is quarter delays. And we have a effect send that we bring in, which is doing a little bit of EQ, mostly just nerfing the low end and this kind of 350 hertz range, and adding more stereo delay. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 layers of delay, one of which is doing reverse and pitch. Pretty cool. Multi-tap delay as a plugin crashes my computer quite often, but 4 separate delay plugins apparently does not. So we just swap back and forth between those two sounds, and I just kind of make sure that while I was doing this, I was just really conscious that I was doing everything on, everything off. These days I may have set up a macro, thanks to kind of like the modulators here. These weren't an option when I was finishing up this track, so but I'll use that in the future. That's a really handy tool. That's the clean guitar. We're doing really basic stuff. We're holding down tonic chords. We're playing funky stuff. There's nothing like crazy going on there. Speaking of terrible decisions, we have 4 layers of distorted guitar. And actually, it's quite sloppy guitar, even for me. But I wasn't worried about that because the whole thing feels quite loose. That's the vibe, basically. We have distorted guitars left and right. These are quite low in the mix because they're a chunky sound. One is panned hard left, one is panned hard right. We're using Guitar Rig. The left one has got the Screamer plugin and the Fire Breather preset. The other one on the right is the Screamer tube distortion with the Ramfire amp. And I don't think there's much going on automation-wise. No, it's just a consistent level throughout. Let me just double check that. Yeah, that's just consistent throughout. They don't appear. There's like 3 real riffs there, and then the end bit, which is just, again, kind of loose, but meh. So those are going on, and there's a bit of frequency going on. The electric guitar chuggy preset, I like. I think they are both doing the same. Yes. And then we have the 8-string, which is doing the same kind of thing but an octave lower. And I'm kind of picking and choosing when I'm playing power chords and when I'm playing individual notes, because one of the really cool things about an 8-string is you get, if you do like a vibrato on the low strings, it just feels really satisfying. Just sounds really nice. So those are left and right panned again, but not so extreme. The left is 67%, the right is 67%, and then I bet the amps are pretty similar. Yep, that is the same as the one in the left, and that is the same again. The fire breather amp, and then we've got, I think, that same chuggy preset going on there. I think in these ones, yeah, I removed a bit more of the low end for the 6-string guitar. The 8-string, I didn't want to remove too much low end because that's what this guitar has to offer, you know. It would be weird to get rid of it. Yeah, and they're just doing big chunky chords throughout, and we also have, I said we'd get to this section here. I just thought that'd be a cool thing to do, and you know what? I stand by it. I think that middle one, I think there's some pitching going on with the 6-string guitar. It's got kind of like a vinyl pull sort of effect. I'm just inside of Cubase. I'm just doing like a pitch shift thing. Yeah, you can see I'm going. I'm just sort of pulling it down by like 17 tones, I guess. So it's quite extreme, but I think it sounds cool. And the 8-string, I think, is not doing that. I think I might be playing that. So it's a combination of like digital and not so digital. I like it. And that takes us to lead guitar. There isn't like a distinct guitar solo in this or anything. I'm sort of just playing noodly things. Again, it's quite loose. Like I'm not worrying too much about playing like the perfect thing, because honestly life is too short. You can see I've kind of moved that around and such. Again, we're using the Ramfire amp with the Screamer plugin. Probably the electric guitar solo ear candy preset, which I like a lot. There's a nice 5k boost, and everything below 50 is kind of nerfed. In terms of plugins and such, we are going to the same delay effect send as the clean guitar. We are moving back and forth in the pan in the stereo field a little bit, especially later on, as you can see, and we're automating the volume a little bit as well. The pan is mostly just to make sure it's not in the way. So when we're playing this unison line, it's fairly central, because everything's playing it, so it may as well be central. When it's doing like these kind of little licks, it's off to the right a bit more, and quite low in the mix as well. And then we come to something like this, where we're going back and forth in the stereo field. And then back into the middle for that unison melody. The last thing I want to say about lead guitar is we've got this fun bit. Which I think starts out sounding like it could be a slide or like a whammy bar, maybe. If you're really precise with the whammy bar, you could do that. But I think after a couple bars, it's pretty clear that it's like a digital effect. with a lot of delay on it. We're just treating that as like a cinematic riser, I guess, to go into that final. I don't know if you want to call that a chorus. You could call that a chorus, whatever. That is Omnom. That is the track breakdown. That is the mix walkthrough, whatever you want to call this. That was it. I'm good at outros. Again, you can download this wherever you listen to music. I would prefer it if you were going to purchase it to go to Ko-fi, because I see much more of that money. You will pay probably less overall than any of the other platforms, but I will see a high proportion of it. So that's nice. Ko-fi, please. Yeah, I have got more music coming out this year, so please do whatever app you use to listen to music. If you subscribe to Blue Alatar, that would be very cool. Yeah, cheers. Bye.